what are the biggest risks when reselling medical equipment, and how can they be mitigated?
So the biggest overall risk, obviously, is some kind of breach or leak of patient identifiable data, PID. It's never happened on the Hilditch, or through Hilditch, I should say. But that's what we want. That's what we're working to maintain that record of. In terms of mitigation, this is the bit we do quite well, if I say so myself. So what we've got a very strong system, a very tight system of doing, is right from collection. Let's take the example of it probably comes from an EBME department in an NHS hospital. That's where a lot of equipment comes to. So it's stored in your EBME department. It's an ultrasound. It's got a work list of patient names and their dates of birth and their NHS numbers on it. So we collect it using Hilditch drivers, Hilditch lorries. We don't use DHL or anything like that, which means that we can track that piece of equipment onto the back of the lorry. We can track it down the road from the hospital straight to our location here at HQ. It doesn't have to go through a depot or a hub of any description. I mean, you've seen the places just off the M1, those massive warehouses where stuff gets moved around and lost and etc. So we avoid all of that. It comes direct from A to B to here. When the lorries are unloaded here at HQ, as you've seen today on your walkthrough, Johnny, the equipment is then in effect quarantined into bays depending on where it's come from. And the second part of that process is our engineers then take a look at that equipment straight away to be able to quarantine our assets with patient data. What they're actually quarantining at that point is assets with the potential to hold patient data, if that makes sense. There's a subtle difference there. So there's a lot of assets now that have the potential to hold patient data. You could be talking about ECGs, you could be talking about patient monitoring, you could be talking about DFIPs, you could be talking about ultrasounds, ophthalmic equipment, a whole host of stuff. So we're I like to think very good at identifying what those items might be, quarantining them to one side. That's the first part of the process, making sure they're secure. The second part of that process is in the removal of patient data. So we work to fairly stringent standards that we obviously have to because of the nature of what we're working with here. There's something called InfoSec 5 is the national governing standard of data deletion. So we've got a method using a third-party piece of software that overwrites the hard drive. This is my non-technical explanation of this. Overwrites the hard drive a number of times. So you might also be familiar, if you hit delete on your PC, you delete a Word document, it's still there somewhere. It's still there somewhere, isn't it? Someone with a bit more IT knowledge than I've got can take your hard drive and find that Word document and find what was contained on it. Hitting delete is not good enough for patient data. So with the overwrite system that we use, it means that it is completely unrecoverable. Now, the really key thing that our engineers are also very good at is overwriting the database where the patient data is held, whilst maintaining the operating system that actually runs that piece of medical equipment. So you take your ultrasound example. If it's a GE ultrasound, it'll have a GE operating system on it. The nice graphics that come up when you load it up, the system that allows you to navigate through the different transducers and the different settings and all that kind of stuff. That's the operating system, and that's what we want to maintain. What we want to do when we resell that unit is allow the next user of the piece of kit to use it. What we want to try and avoid is removing the hard drive completely or damaging the operating system. That means that equipment loses a lot of its resale value. So by going through the process that we've developed here, it means we're very, very confident and secure in removing the patient data. We issue a certificate back to the vendor. So the organization selling the equipment get a certificate back for their records to say we sent that to auction with Hilditch. Here's the certificate to say all the data was removed. But it means for the buyer, the other side of the equation, they've got a system they can actually put into use.
It's quite a skill set to know for every manufacturer, every model, how that can all catch you out, really, if it's not done.
Yeah, there are different kind of nuances to it. You mentioned different manufacturers, and obviously the medical technology world constantly moves on, as we've already talked about. And maybe 10 years ago, it was relatively straightforward, lots of different assets using the same operating systems, the same structures. Now we see even ultrasounds coming in with 3 different hard drives. So you or I might think, oh, I've deleted that data from here, but you forget there's 2 other hard drives within the unit. So our engineers have to be very skilled and very methodical in terms of working through what are the different options here. Are we covering all the bases? Are we absolutely sure that we've fully removed the data from that unit before it goes up for sale?
Well, there's something.